Well, hey, what up, peeps? How's it going? I love music. Music is such an important part of my life that I take it for granted. It's almost like the same way you don't talk about your car, right? I mean, I guess a lot of people do talk about their cars, but uh, the idea that you have these things in your life that help you function, help you, you know, make it through the day, and music being one of those things is extremely important to me. I panic if I forget my headphones. I I worry about downloading the songs I need for the day to make sure that I've got the music that I need. Because when I'm working and doing something, having music in my ears and listening to something that moves me is just like bread and butter, man. I mean, it's just one of the basics. And I know for some people, music is not the same. Music is not enjoyable to some people. And I know for some folks, I want to make this note for those who might know somebody who's not into music. Don't blame them for it. It's not always people's fault. Our brains process information and process music differently. Each person is going to grasp onto music differently than the person next to them. That's just a fact. And I have a book from a guy, he was a neuroscientist, Oliver Sacks. And there's a book called that was Terence McKenna, True Hallucinations. But there is a book called Hallucinations by Oliver Sacks. And he was studying why people see certain things when otherwise their vision is totally normal. They might have hallucinations of people running across the table. There's some really weird stories out there, but that's not about this. There's also another book called Musicophilia, and that was also by Oliver Sacks. And it talks about different folks and how they process music. There are some people that can only hear in a certain octave, or that they can't hear nuances between different tones, that they are tone deaf, functionally tone deaf. And therefore, when they listen to music, it just sounds like garbled mess to them. And just getting that out of the way, I feel really bad for those people, because music is such an important part of most people's lives that I know, that if a person cannot enjoy music, I think of it as a defect. And I realize that each human is unique and each person has their own path. And perhaps for some people's brains to function properly, they might not be able to listen to music and enjoy it. But I wouldn't be able to live without it. And I really don't have any music that I would consider bad. In other words, when people talk about, oh, this is shitty music or crap for rap, I listen to rap, I listen to hip hop, I listen to metal, I listen to the Grateful Dead, I listen to Fish, I was introduced to Mac Miller the other day. Yeah, I know, I'm 15 years late, at least 10 years late, but I've heard about Mac Miller for years, but I have a good friend who I trust who loves good music, and he's like, you should listen to this album. And he sent me an album called Circles, and I fell in love with it instantly. And he knows me, and he knows what I like. It is so from the heart, and I didn't know anything about Mac Miller at that, before that. I guess it would be the same way that some people think about Eminem or, other rappers, like, oh, they're just, rappers. They don't have anything really to say. They're just rapping. It was the same way that my parents treated heavy metal when I was a kid. They told me, oh, you can't even hear what they're saying. All the lyrics they're just saying blah, 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 blah. I was like, no, I can hear what they're saying. In fact, here's the Megadeth list. Here's the Slayer list. Every single song, all the lyrics from the songs, they actually do have meaning, and they mean something to people. And if you don't understand what they mean, that's fine. But to assume that they mean nothing means that you really don't understand the music. So, I've been listening to that Mac Miller album and really enjoying it because it's from the heart. And that's one of the things that I find is the most important thing, is that music is from the heart. And I say music, and most people might think of Mac Miller as a rapper. He's a musician. He started playing guitar and drums and bass before he could play like instruments before he was 6 years old. He was he was into music. He wanted to be a singer. He ended up being a rapper. I played music when I was young, and I was obsessed with guitar. I practiced consistently. I'd get my tape player out and record off the radio and play whatever songs I wanted to learn. Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, Jimi Hendrix, Grateful Dead, whatever it was. And I found an appreciation for music that allowed music to sit over here, away from everything else. Like, music is its own thing. And, you know, funnily enough, in recent years, I've been hearing a lot more about like cultural appropriation in music. And I just wanted to make a note of that it's complete bullshit and I don't buy it. Look, if there's a pop band that's making millions of dollars and they start putting out Middle Eastern music or something that's completely not their genre, only for profit, yeah, that could be considered cultural appropriation. But the idea that if a white guy is playing rap music, that's cultural appropriation, I guess it would be the same as Elvis. He was the original. He stole blues music and made it white people's music. So fucking what? Like, that doesn't bother me at all. Music needs to be appreciated. In other words, there's certain things that you don't do. You don't go wearing a soldier's uniform with all the medals and everything, just out in public. People hate that. It's, you know, it's what is it? False valor or stolen valor, I think they call it. And people really don't like that. And that's understandable because some people have earned these medals. You may not be interested in joining and fighting for your country, but don't pretend that you are a person who has. Well, it's the same way as a musician, right? Who might go to another country and hear some music and steal it. Led Zeppelin is probably one of the biggest thieves of music in music history. And any big music fans or Zeppelin fans are well aware of the controversy around much of Zeppelin's music. It sounds very bluesy. Why does it sound bluesy when they're from the UK? Well, because they sent scouts. Led Zeppelin sent scouts over to the US to go down to the South and listen to the blues music and then come back with these recordings so they could process and try to understand what was popular in the US and go off of that. They did so. They made all kinds of songs, When the Levee Breaks, and a lot of their songs are very American style. But does that matter to me? No, it doesn't at all. Does it matter that Stairway to Heaven may have been a stolen song? I mean, maybe a little bit, but not really. I mean, there's something which wasn't people weren't aware of until recently, in at least the creator community, if you want to call it that, or like YouTubers who talk about fair use. And fair use in movies and, you know, the industry are totally different from fair use in music. Because if you're copying somebody's movie and you're just making, say, a knockoff of somebody's movie, you know, you're lazy. You're just making somebody else's shit. But if you're making music that's based on something that you heard, that stands outside the realms of cultural appropriation or any of that bullshit. And I just wanted to say, don't buy into it. You can tell when a person's just trying to profit off of other cultures. And there's a huge difference between cultural appropriation and cultural appreciation. And appropriation and appreciation should be completely separated as far as possible. And I guess the reason why I feel so strongly about this is because music is such an important part of my life and so many other people's lives that nobody should be able to take that from anybody. If somebody has the inspiration to get behind a fucking microphone and make a song and they're afraid that they might sound like someone else, welcome to the club. Every song I've ever played, somebody said, oh, that sounds like this or sounds like that. You don't take it offensively. I don't want a song that sounds completely different from everything else. I want something that brings emotions forward that sounds like what music is to us. And that changes with time. When I was a teenager, I remember sitting with my friends and thinking, what is music going to be like when we're like 40, 50? Is it just going to be a bunch of like, you know, digital beats put together? Like, honestly, it's pretty much what I thought it was going to be. But I couldn't foresee that it would be okay that some music is completely digital. That's another aspect of music. People say, oh, this was all made on synthesizers and there's no real instruments. Let me put it this way. The musical purists are the ones who ruin music for more people than anyone else, because they're the ones that are looked up to by a lot of musicians as, oh, this person, you know, they wrote great music. And then they make this comment that, oh, you shouldn't use these instruments or that instrument. Fuck you. Use every instrument at your disposal. If you want to slap on a fucking clamshell, slap on a clamshell. Every bit of music that we've ever created came from one original idea. And that's the idea of harmony and patterns and rhythm in nature that we'd hear. The pitter-patter of the raindrops, the birds, the consistent cawing and the howling of the wolves. We turned this into an audible experience. And to me, as a musician and as somebody who loves music, I'm consistently amazed when I sit back and look at all these instruments coming together to create this thing and say, what is this? Why does this sound amazing? Why does it pull me out of my funk? Why does it make me feel the way it makes me feel? Sometimes you just got to stop questioning and just start experiencing. Peace out. Music is great. That's all I wanted to say. Embrace your music.